DePaul University.
As of this minute, I do not
it's not
have,
that precarious,
I
is
do
it?
not have a tenured job. I've been called the oldest living assistant professor in the United States, and that's probably true.
But you're not tucked away in some dusty room, unable to speak, are you? You're listened to. You have a constituency out there.
I have a constituency outside the mainstream media and abroad. But I don't think it would be accurate to say I have a constituency within the mainstream media in the United States. That would be an inaccurate statement.
And you have your critics, which you would expect, wouldn't you? You don't expect to say controversial things about Israel and have them lie down and just accept it without arguing,
No, I think criticism is a healthy phenomenon, but I don't think it's accurate to say that the criticism I articulate is heard in the mainstream media in the United States. That, I would say, is not a correct statement.
What about Jimmy Carter and his book, Palestine, Peace, Not Apartheid? Published with great fanfare, upset a lot of people in the Jewish community. He, like you, is also living proof of the debate that you both claim isn't there. The debate is there. He's set off an enormous debate, hasn't he?
The fact of the matter is, and that was the point of my introductory remarks, if you actually read Jimmy Carter's book, it's a very tepid rendering of the actual documentary records. And the question is, why does a tepid rendering of the documentary record evoke hysteria in the United States?
Okay, Norman Finkelstein, thank you very much indeed. Now let me please ask Martin Indyk to speak against the motion.
Thank you, Tim. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I think the fact that Doha Debates has come to the Oxford Union, the home of debating, is an indication that there's no stifling of the debate. But let me just pick up on the Jimmy Carter example. He has written 3 books highly critical of Israel. The last one, Palestine, Peace, Not Apartheid, was number 4 on the New York Times bookseller list. By his own account, as he went on a book tour around the United States, he was greeted by thousands of people who turned out to hear his anti-Israel message. He was hosted, unlike Norman, on all the major network TV talk shows. He had op-ed pieces published in the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Boston Globe, summarizing his argument. Of course, Carter managed to generate a firestorm of criticism. But that's the best evidence that there's no stifling of the debate. In fact, the debate has been very intense. The second case, of course, is the even more famous one that you'll be aware of Steve Walt and John Mearsheimer. These 2 American academics from establishment universities, Chicago and Harvard, wrote a very lengthy paper on the Israel lobby that was first published here by the London Review of Books. It claimed that there was a vast cabal of pro-Israel supporters who constituted a powerful machine that was distorting the American national interest in Israel's favor. Not surprisingly, it too set off a firestorm of debate, including a symposium in the prestigious Foreign Policy magazine, an unprecedented 2-day debate on National Public Radio, several articles in the New York Review of Books, a debate at the New York's famous Cooper Union, op-ed pieces in the Washington Post and New York Times, and articles in Commentary, US News and World Report, the American Prospect, New York Sun, etc., etc. The list is endless of people who make this argument about Israel's sins and the power of the Israel lobby.
Time, please.
What they all have in common is that they all claim that they're being stifled.
Martin Indyk, thank you very much indeed. You mentioned the article by the US academics Stephen Walt and John Mearsheimer, published by the London Review of Books. You omitted to say it was published by the London Review of Books because they couldn't get it published in the States.
No, I did say that, and it's an interesting question, Tim. I checked with the Atlantic Monthly where they tried to get it published.
Yeah.
And I talked to the senior people there, and what they told me was it was far too long, and Walt and Mearsheimer would not agree to cut it.
So it was simply for that?
They said they had no problem.
And you know for a fact that they didn't try elsewhere to get it published?
I don't know that for a fact. I know that they tried at the Atlantic Monthly, and the Atlantic Monthly
But they continue to say that
it.
they couldn't get it published in the United States. And when you debated the topic with them, it was under the aegis of the London Review of Books,
well,
wasn't
they wanted the publicity. It was in New York, the Cooper Union. It was a highly visible event.
It's not all high profile, is it? In October last year, 2 major Jewish organizations, the ADL and the American Jewish Committee, helped block Tony Judd, who was also on that debate, from speaking at the Polish consulate in New York. He was also barred from speaking at a Manhattan college in the Bronx. This surely is the kind of stifling of debate that we're seeing, isn't it?
Again, the issue of the Polish consul is in dispute. I don't know what the
Why is
actual
it in
facts
dispute?
are. Because the ADL apparently just called up and said, are you having them there? And the Poles decided to cancel it on their own.
Well, the Polish Consul General has a different view.
He
He says the phone calls were very elegant, but may be interpreted as exercising a delicate pressure. That's obvious. He said we're adults and our IQs are high enough to understand that.
Okay. Tony
So
Judd,
he's pretty clear where he stands on that.
Tim, I can assure you that Tony Judd has no problem getting an audience for his point of view.
So why does he say then this is, he says this is serious and frightening,
because this is
and only in America?
This is precisely the point I was trying to make, is the way in which little-known people become world-renowned is by claiming that they are the victim of some Zionist conspiracy.
Martin Indyk, thank you very much indeed. Now to Andrew Cockburn, please. Can I ask you to speak for the motion?
Thank you. Well, of course, debate on this issue is stifled or restrained